Hello and welcome. I am Sarah Schweppe. I'm an Essence Coach who supports divorced women to create the lifelong, soul-nourishing relationship of their dreams. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about getting hung up on an ex. So I think there's infinite explanations for why this happens with people. And so I just want to be clear. I think everyone is unique and there might be, different details, but I have sort of a unique perspective of what's happening here. And I just wanted to share that because I think it can be empowering when our focus is out on someone else and maybe kind of like energetically wanting something back, when we can shift that into what am I doing to create this? What am I avoiding in myself? What's happening inside of me? I always think that's an incredibly empowering experience. So for me in the past, when I've been hung up on an ex, and what do I mean by hung up? I think not moving forward, creating stories about the relationship, hoping that it'll start again, maybe regretting the ending. So if you were somebody who maybe didn't want the divorce, or you opted for the divorce and maybe you just wanted the person to do what you wanted them to do and you thought maybe a divorce would do that, or maybe you wanted the divorce and you just regretted it, or the breakup, whatever thing. I think that when there's so much happening in a divorce and a breakup, so many feelings are coming up. Some, I think, from the present day relationship, but I also think it's an opportunity for old stuck energy that got stuck way back when in our childhood, maybe another lifetime, can come up and try and be released. And when we don't know how the mind and body work, and how when we get activated like that and we go below the line or into reactive brain, what's happening, we can get stuck in the mind's stories. So something that was really powerful for me that I learned from Dr. Julie Colwell with the Evolutionary Power Institute was that I knew that my thoughts impacted my emotional state. What I didn't realize was that my thoughts also reflected my emotional state. So there was more to shifting for me than just changing my thoughts. And when I realized that I could actually go into my body, recognize where I'm at on the inner map, which is an energetic scale of the levels of consciousness, that once I could locate myself there and recognize what emotion, what level of consciousness I'm in, I could then see how my thoughts reflected it. So if I'm in a fear state or a sad state or an angry state, my thoughts are going to reflect that. So this is why it's so important to not believe our thoughts, because my mind is so fickle, it's ever changing, because my body, my energy is shifting all day long. And so in a divorce, going through a divorce, having all these different feelings, if I don't have a way to move those through as they come up through my body energetically, then I can get stuck in different states and my mind can replay different stories from those states. So I want to offer something to you, a resource that's been really helpful for me. The man named David Hawkins, maybe you've heard of him. He's deceased now. He was a physician and a psychiatrist. He did a lot of work with energy. There's a book called Healing and Recovery, and it's just various chapters, I think, on lectures that he's given. There's a chapter on emotional crises, and it's basically for things like this: divorce, death, injury, the places where life happens and we can't really explain it. And he talks about how the barn doors open, our own like inner barn doors open, and the animals just want to come rushing out. The animals being all our old, repressed, unexpressed energy. And he talks about this being the spiritual task is to let go of the mind's thoughts, because if my mind is trying to reflect that wash of energy that's coming through me, it's like, I think that's where it's like, oh, I'm going to go crazy with all this. Oh, I can't feel all that. I'm going to go crazy. Well, if I believe my thoughts, it probably is going to be pretty overwhelming. But if I can go into my body and move that through, there's a very specific step-by-step process called SEW for this. then the energy has the opportunity to clear. And what happens is if we can let go of the thoughts and the stories and recognize they are just that, the barn doors will eventually close. Like that burst of energy will move through, will shift to a more expansive energetic state. So what we would call at EPI above the line, will feel better. I had this happen when my dog died, which happened right around the time of my divorce. And I remember reading this chapter because I was like, oh shit, it's too much. It was like COVID hit. I had quit my job, my lifelong career as a social worker. I had just cashed out my 401k. The world shut down. I got divorced, and then my dog was dying. That was a lot. And so I knew, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to handle this? And so I found this chapter in this book, and it taught me how to handle it, because exactly what he said happened. All this big energy. I laid on the ground and like in a starfish position, and just imagined the energy pouring through my chest. And there's a prayer that he has. God, help me to surrender to this experience. Show me how to handle it. Help me to be consciously aware of your presence in me. And so that gives the mind something to do. And then at some point, he talks about how something bigger, our higher self, the universe, whatever, God, takes over. And you're sort of out of the small mind, and the energy's moving through. It's like, I'm not doing it alone. And when I could do that, in the moments where that grief came in, sometimes it would only take minutes, and it would be crying and just wailing, and I could see these memories from being a kid and other relationships and all this stuff trying to move through. And so in this way, the challenge, the big life challenges, the big events that we can't explain, that we didn't plan for, that we don't really want, become a gift to move the old stuff through. And so getting hung up on our ex, I think the way I see it, is part of this. It's my unwillingness to let the old stuff, to let the energy, to let my feelings move through. And so my mind hooks in. But that relationship was so good, and I'm never going to find anybody like that. Or why did I do that? By replaying the places that we have regret, or we wish we would have behaved differently. That churning over, I think, is a reaction to being in reactive brain. So depending on the thread of the thought, so if you can like zoom out of the details and sort of look at the context, what would you label those thoughts? Are they despairing? Are they sad? Are they mad? Are they prideful? Maybe you're like, well, fuck him anyways. Like you kind of bounce from pride to shame, and like, but I really want him back or her back. And, oh, I'm such a piece of shit. Why did I do that? And oh, I'm so pathetic. Here I am hung up on my ex. And then you might, you're like kind of hovering in shame, and shame really sucks. Shame's at the bottom of the inner map. And then maybe you get sick of that and you bump up to pride and like, well, fuck them. I'm going to have a glow up, and I'm going to be great. And this was the best thing that could happen to me. That feels a lot better than shame, but it's still not above the line. Above the line, levels of consciousness might say, it is what it is. That person came in to teach me a lot. And I accept that it's over. I did the best I could. They did the best they could. It's like a little bit more loving, sort of neutral, accepting, appreciative thoughts. I even appreciate this person for the spotlight on, all my issues that were spotlighted in our time together, whatever it is. So we can recognize where we're at emotionally by our thoughts. And so I think this is a big piece of getting hung up on our ex, that we're actually swimming around in our mind in regret and remorse and future thinking and fearing and maybe panicking as a way to not move through the feelings that we're actually experiencing in our body. And for me, breakup, loss, we're probably all over the map. There's probably anger. There is probably a lot of sadness. There's probably fear. What do I do now? All this uncertainty. So if you can go in and move that through, and one of the best ways, if you recognize you're in your mind, you're in these stories, you're focusing out there on somebody else, because what we're doing in that place of sort of churning a story over and really wanting something that may not be possible. It's like, what do you really want? If you're wanting to get back with your ex, what would that give you? Like, what do you imagine that's going to bring you? Because when we're bringing, if they would just call me back, if they would just do this thing, if I could just have them back, if they could just see, if they, whatever it is, well, what do you get if they call you back? Do you want your power back? Do you want to feel seen? Do you want to feel loved? If you can get to the root of that and remove the person from it, because when we have that, when we need something from somebody so badly, we've totally outsourced our power. So I wonder what it is you really want. Oh, I want to feel loved. Oh, I can actually give myself love. Love is an energy. One quick and easy way to love yourself is to like imagine something you love wholeheartedly without complication. Our four-leggeds are good for this. And to think about, like, I'm thinking about my cat, my dog, like how much I love them, bringing in that energy, breathing it into my whole body, letting myself really like bask in that. That's all loving ourselves is. It's like bringing in the energy of love, which I can generate within myself. I don't need that from someone else. So knowing that our thoughts reflect our state, and if we're really focused out there on getting something, I wonder what's happening in here. Another way to go to work with this is to go into your body via your sensation. So you can, if you notice you're in your mind, drop down into your body, just notice one sensation. I'm checking in right now. I notice I have a little bit of a butterfly in my stomach. And you can just kind of keep your attention on that and watch how it shifts. Blow your mind a kiss if it wants to come in and distract you or take you away from it. This is feeling our feelings, just simply noticing a sensation, breathing into it, letting it get as big as it wants to get so that it can move on through. I say this, it's a simple process, but not always easy. This is often what I'm doing, and well, not often. This is what I'm doing in sessions with clients. And the other thing I wanted to suggest as a possibility that I think is connected to all of this is the idea of power struggle in relationship, and especially in endings, because a lot of times I think that we're ending relationships from our personas, right? Like you get into a relationship and your essence is forward and it's so loving and perfect. And then over time, our number one personas that are often also present in the beginning of the relationship, right? Like the ones that, these are the parts that we see on dating profiles. Like I'm the, athlete, and I love caring for people, and I'm like this great business person. Like the things that are celebrated in society that look good, our number one personas, they get tired, and our number two personas eventually come out. And this is the place in the relationship where we're like, who are you? What happened to my partner? Or we might say, you bring out the worst in me. Well, those parts were always there. They come out in relationship because the number one personas get tired, and we start seeing the control freak and the exploder and the rageaholic and the alcoholic and the carbaholic. All these parts of us that we keep hidden eventually come out. And I think if we aren't aware of that rather normal process in relationship, we can start to think that's who we really are, and that's who our partner really is. And relationships from that place. And not to say that's wrong, but because our personas are often ending relationships, personas are anchored in power struggle. And so I think sometimes what can happen when we're really fantasizing about an ex, kind of just stuck in that thinking, what we might actually want is our power back. So I'm introducing so many concepts here, but I love them all, and I think they're all so fascinating. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So there's something called power over and power under. I talk a little bit about it in some of my other videos. Anytime we go into a negative emotional state, below the line in reactive brain, we're assuming a persona, and power over or power under. Power over is the more villainous, heroic parts of us that sort of take charge and might get a little bossy or be very caregiving and think we know what's best. Power under is a little bit more reserved, sort of placating, kind of victim-y. And we all have these parts. And so we can flip-flop in relationship over time if we don't know how to get above the line into power with, where we're in our essence and we're all equals, or we're just in a constant threat response and not sure how to shift out of it. We land in these positions, and I think we know these, like we can see these in relationship. Like she wears the pants in the relationship would indicate to me a power over. He's a pushover, probably power down. So we find these ways to land in hierarchy to make it work, because I don't think we have a lot of examples of how to make it work from a power with place. So I'm sharing this in the context of getting hung up on your ex, because I think sometimes we lose our power along the way, especially if it's a really rough sort of conflict, brittled ending, that there's probably stuff happening with power, and that some part of you has decided that if you get this person back, you'll feel your power again. You'll feel loved, you'll feel worthy, you'll feel connected, you won't have to feel scared that maybe no one else is out there. Whatever the reason, the solve is to get the person back so that we don't have to feel a certain way, or so that we can feel powerful. The really, really good news is you can get your power back without the other person having to do anything. This goes for being in a relationship too. Because the second I come back into my body and I'm willing to feel the feelings that never got felt and that are coming up now, I'm already shifting into becoming power with myself. So coming back into alignment, moving the gunk through. As I do that, my mind lets go of the stories. And this may be a process that has to happen over and over again, because we get these buildup of energetic layers, density in our body. So I'm not saying it's like, a one and done, although maybe, I don't know, that would be wonderful. So moving it through, shifting out of that power struggle. Shame is really power down. Pride and anger is really power over. Coming up above the line, reconnecting with your essence, where it's so beautiful there. Because, I don't know, maybe from your essence, you still want the other person back, but it's probably going to look a lot different. You're probably going to be way less attached to any outcome. You're probably going to see the person through a different perspective. You might see yourself with more compassion. Who knows what is possible from creative brain, from above the line. So I wonder if part of what's happening for you and being hung up on your ex is that your mind has decided if you get your ex back, that you'll get your power back. Maybe, maybe not. I think I'd like to end there. I've introduced a lot of concepts here. I would love to hear what you think. Where are you stuck? How does this land with you? All right, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day.